right, you guys, this is eliminating tension headaches. How many of us have felt like this when dealing with working with a quilt and we just can't get the tension right and we've rolled it and it's just a mess underneath and we're just almost in tears. And so this guide is hopefully going to help us get started so we can prevent some of those tension issues. So we're not looking like this little emoji down here, starting to get angry and blaming the machine. And then we have to go look for our aspirin bottle or Tylenol. And then we call tech support and we have to go through the same process of going through how to fix the problems with tech support, and they ask the same questions and you've already done that. You're so frustrated that you've already gone through all the steps, and then it drives you to drinking. And I put my favorites, the Dr. Pepper and the Mountain Dew, but you'll notice that it's Dr. Pepper and I call the Mountain Dew the MD. So they're medical device to help me get through that. And some of you might turn to the drink itself of a little wine. And then last of all, we want to not be unpicking. Okay. I say that's one of my hidden talents that I don't like to express that I'm really good at because I have done so much unpicking. Huh, Marie?
Yes.
Marie always teases me about unpicking because I don't like the stitch. And so one of the questions that was asked, they want tips for getting it set up right, their tension set up right for the first time. So I'm happy to announce that in this presentation, we have some new guides and new helps for you to print off so that you can put them next to your frame and machine to help you work through the tensions. And one of them is the pre-tension guide, the perfection tension guide. So it'll help you. And so I want you to use this new guide, and it's right here. So you can print this page off, and I know Jacqueline has put it in. And so it's like the pre-quilting checklist. It's going to help us identify what some of the problems are so that we can be preventative. And that's really important when it comes to quilting because I feel like those little checklists really will help us move forward as quilters in a better light and not let us get so frustrated because we've already gone through this little list and we've already fixed a lot of the issues that we're going to run into if we don't. So it's select your materials carefully. Now I want to express how important it is for the materials that you're using and quilting on to be testing on those same materials. So if you're quilting with on a t-shirt quilt, you need to have a t-shirt type fabric there that you're stitching off so that you can get the same results and adjust your tension correctly. Use the same weight batting that you're using, and don't just pull something out of your closet. Use what you're using to quilt with. Okay, clean your framing machine. Very important, you guys. We create a lot of tension issues by not cleaning and maintaining our frames and machines correctly. So clean them out. Clean the lint and the dust out of everywhere. Look for those thread tails. Adjust your rail height. Now, if you don't have an idler rail, you need to make sure that you're adjusting your height of your rail while you're quilting. If you're getting a lot of play or vibration of fabric, then your rail height is too high. Oil your machine. Check your encoders beforehand. Make sure they're plugged in. I can't tell you, we have little gremlins that go around at the Grace Company and they play with machines. They're not even kids. Well, they are kids, okay? I call them engineers and educators. So they're going and pulling things apart all the time. So do your due diligence because you never know who's going to come in your quilting room if you don't have a lock on the door and play around with it. So double check everything and make sure everything's moving. Move your machine front to back, side to side. As you are doing that, check and feel for little patches in the little thread tails that get caught underneath the wheels, and you can literally feel them even if you have the automation on. So then you'll know that you need to look for those because they'll wrap around your wheel. I've even had wheels that have come off because the threads wrapped around so much and nobody's caught it. Make sure you're pulling up your threads and cutting them. Do not move across your quilt without pulling up your bottom thread and cutting it off to move to the next section. That can create tension problems. Check your foot height, check your bobbin tension, thread your machine carefully, and then sew off using the tension. So that leads me to my next one. What is a good stitch? Everybody's asked me, what does a good stitch look like? We know what bad stitches look like. Now, how do you judge good tension? So I went and I found a picture of good tension. So this is what good tension looks like. And you can see that you can see an actual stitch, and the knots on each side are hidden in the batting layers. That's what a good stitch looks like. This is what we're trying to achieve on the top of our quilt and on the bottom of our quilt. So let this be your iconic picture that you're trying to achieve and work on. And then one person asked, getting, hang on, I have to move this. So getting the top thread not to show on the bottom, okay? So we're going to make a new rule of thumb here. All right, we're always telling you to start with your tensioner on number 1. It's very, very loose. I would like for you to then make your tension tighter so that the bottom thread is pulling up, and then you can back it off. And the reason I'm saying that is because when it's loose, your bottom is always loose. And it's hard to adjust that bottom tension without seeing what it looks like. So when you pull that bottom thread up and you can see the knot, you know that that knot is coming up and your bottom tension is going to look a little better. And then you can back off the top tension. So as we're showing, we're going to talk about what do the numbers mean. This is another question on the tension knob. So the numbers are the level of tension that you're getting. So the lower the numbers indicates less tension, and the higher the numbers indicates more tension. So as you're adjusting your dial, it's always lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So turning it towards the right and cranking up the numbers, we want it to be a little tighter. So I have a couple little videos that I wanted to show you because somebody asked, what, after you've done everything and you're still frustrated with the tension and what it looks like, what are the chronological steps they wanted to know to take to then go through and adjust tension? And number 1, I felt like, is make sure your machine is threaded properly. Lots of times the thread will break, and when they do break, the thread gets wrapped around the needle incorrectly, or it gets double wrapped around one of the thread guides, or it pulls out of the tension disc. So make sure that you're rethreading your machine and pulling it through the disc correctly. So on my next page, because I'm going to go back and forth on these pages, I've got a little tension video that I wanted to show you about threading the machine. So I'll shut up and let me take the wheel on this video. Machine towards you, make it nice and comfortable. And I'm going to try to do this from the back, from the front. So my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So just bear with me. So we want to make sure it comes through here. I'm going to floss it back and forth. And
Karla, can you turn the volume up?
yeah. Let me start it over then. Okay, let me pause it and start it over. I will turn it up. Let me get to my settings, you guys. Sorry, on my laptop. I've got 3 screens here, you guys, so I'm... All right, there we go. And let me get back to PowerPoint and my video. Okay. Can you see it now, or there we go?
Yeah.
Okay, started it over. Come on. Four things. Pull your machine towards you. Okay, sorry. Sorry. I'll get the hang of this, you guys. I promise.
You got this.
Pull your machine towards you.
You're doing great, Karla.
And I'm going to try to do this from the back, from the front. So my eyes aren't as good as they used to be.
Karla, we
Yeah.
still can't hear it. Will you stop sharing your screen and then re-share it? There's a little checkbox that will let you share your audio, and then we can hear it through your speakers.
So what are you saying?
So stop sharing your screen.
Okay. All right. I don't know how to stop sharing my screen.
It should be up top. There should be.
Is it up top?
Mhm.
If you have a really hard time. Hang on. Okay, there it is. I found it.
Okay, so stop sharing.
Okay. Stop sharing. Okay. Did I stop? No. Guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't get it to come down here.
Is
There
it
we
really
go.
hard?
Yes. Hang on. Okay. There we go. Stop here. Okay. Found it. Okay.
Okay, now hit share screen again.
Okay.
And before you hit go, you're going to select the screen. And then there's a little checkbox with the option to share audio
Where?
on the pop-up, the share screen pop-up.
Share sound. Okay, got it.
There you
Okay.
go.
There we go. All right. There we go.
Okay, now try it. We should be able to hear it better.
I'm going to floss it back and forth. And the reason I'm doing this just to make sure that there's no burrs. You guys can't imagine how much friction the thread makes as it's going across the top. That's where, if you're using it a lot, burrs can develop. And just know that that's a source of the friction from the thread moving across, and they can be sanded out, and they could also be replaced, okay? And now you'll notice that I came from the back towards the front. I'm bringing it around and I'm going through the bottom hole. Each of these holes are aligned so that they match up perfectly for the next set of tensioners. So I'm flossing it back and forth again to feel if there are any burrs, and a burr will feel like a little catch. I'm going to bring it through the top tensioner. Sorry, Jacqueline. I cannot see this. There we go. And I'm going to hold it just like this. If I hold it like this, you'll notice that I can see as it's flossing through the disc. Really important. Now I'm going to bring it back around. Now I know it's flossed between the disc, and now I can bring it through this bottom hole. Now we're going to bring it on this machine here through this tensioner and then back behind. See how I'm using both my hands? I'm going to bring it between the discs. This again, if I hold it right here, bring it up and over the spring, and then back down. And I'm feeling there's tension on it, and that's what you want to make sure. You're tugging and feeling the tension through it. If you don't feel any tension, this is where we get into a lot of problems right here, is that we don't floss it between the disc, and it just sits there and lays. And if you've ever had what I call shag carpet underneath, that's because you're not flossing it between and you're not giving it. So on this machine here, this is a 21X Elite, we're going to go back behind this guide right here, back behind between there, and then bring it up and over this little piece right here. Now we'll just thread our needle right here. And that's the thread guide. And now we're taking it through the needle. And make sure that as you're taking it through the eye of the needle, man, you can make it go back and forth. It feels really good. And as I pull it, it's nice, especially if you have a colored thread, that you can see that it's lined up nice and straight all the way down. Really important. So, all right, let me show you how to put the bobbin in. All right, that was that one. So that's what I want you to do, is check your threading first. Really important. And if you don't know how to thread your machine, grab your instruction manual and make sure that you're threading it. Practice it a couple of times. It's well worth going through that little headache once and getting it right than it is with a frustrating tension problem. Then check your needle. A lot of times we have broken a needle or we changed the needle and our eyesight isn't that great sometimes and we put the needle in backwards. It happens to the best of us, you guys. Or it's misaligned where the eye's not directly facing towards the front. So if you have a hard time seeing, get good lighting. We have the accessories on sale right now, so get you a good light, and then make sure that you have it seated up into the where it's the shaft, so it's nice and tight up in there, and then screw the screw in. A lot of times I forget to tighten the screw enough and then it will fall out, so make sure that you are getting it up in there. And if you have a hard time seeing, is what I was going to say, get a piece of paper and put it back behind the needle. It will actually allow you to see the needle itself better, and you can identify if it's in straight. You can also use a needle, another needle, to put in the eye to make sure it's aligned, or use the magnet alignment tool for your needle. And that's really important. There's really good instructions on how to make sure that it's aligned nice and straight. And then the third thing is I want you to do is check your bobbin case. Marie and I agree both on this. We never check our bobbin case and our bobbins enough while we're quilting. And we always are adjusting the top tension, but we never pull out our bobbin and look at it. So I have another little video that I want to show you, and it's this one right here. So some bobbin, okay? I left this intentionally this way so that you guys could see how I use the settings. So I'm going to lay the bobbin right here. I'm going to look at it. I don't want it pushed up out of the bobbin case. I want to check it, and it should spring. And we know it's seated down just right. If it was pushed up out of the bobbin case like this, you're going to get a lot of eyelashing and backlashing. So it shouldn't be pushed up that high, okay? It should just sit down and barely see it, okay? Now I'm going to lay it with the bobbin exposed face up, take the thread tail that's coming out, and I'm going to pull. And as I'm pulling, I want to make sure that it's standing up straight in my hand. And you can see that's kind of veering to one side slightly as I'm pulling. That means it's a little too loose. Now, I want to stress this, really stress this, is that you're better off tightening it too tight, your tension, rather than too loose. You're going to run into more problems with loose tension than you are tighter, okay? If it's too tight, we can always back it off, even if the thread breaks. But if it's too loose, you run into a lot of thread issues, especially underneath. So let's tighten it, and it's lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. I'm going to get my foot height gauge here. Sorry, I should have had that out. So I'm going to get my foot height gauge here, and I'm just going to find the screw here, and I'm going to turn it towards the right. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. And just tighten it up just slightly, and see how nice it stands straight up, and the bobbin's not coming out, and that feels really good, okay? All right, so when I'm putting it in, I'm going to hold it in these two fingers right here, okay, with the lever straight across or horizontal. But instead of moving up over this pole here and putting it in, if I turned it and flipped it, guess what? The bobbin's going to fall out because I'm trying to put it in. I don't want to play catch up, and I don't want to get around on the ground and try and grab it. And I don't want to drop my bobbin case. So if you will go underneath this backing pole here and put it in, it's much better putting it in and seating it. Just like that. Okay, one more little video that I need to show you. It's just about if you have a hard time putting the bobbin case in. This is if you have a really hard time, okay, and you can't see, and you have back issues or struggles with anything, okay? Sit down on a stool. Let it be that you're sitting down here, and that way you're not, bending over trying to catch it. Go again underneath this pole here and put it in. That way you won't be running around chasing it. Okay, there you go. So those are my little videos. Well, and I have a couple more. So just make sure that we're checking our bobbin case vigilantly, and then also make sure all the lint and the dust is out of it. Do not bend that spring, you guys. I know there are a lot of videos out there that they say to bend the spring so it's pushing the bobbin out. Don't do it, you guys. And always, the accessories are on sale right now. Get an extra bobbin case so that you guys don't have to stop what you're doing and order one, or that you can just continue on quilting. That's one of the things I stress in the class, is continue to have an extra bobbin case on hand. Now, if you're using like the magnet bobbins, you'll want a bobbin case for that. Just always have one ready and available if anything. And if you drop it several times, then
I left this
sorry, you guys.
intentionally
We're
this
supposed to go through
way
it.
so that you guys could see how I
And
used
I'm
to
going
set
to
up.
stop them on.
From the back,
Okay.
from the front.
There we go. So this page right here, I have gone through all the ugly stitches. And so these are the ones on the top of the quilt, and this is what you will do. So the bottom thread is being pulled up to the top layer of fabric, and it looks like you have stitches that look like eyelashes. Eyelashing is on the top. Quilt indicates the issue with the bobbin. So go and check your bobbin. Now, if they are on the back of the quilt, now that's another story. It could be a bobbin issue as well. It could be that the bobbin is being pushed, the spring is bent and it's pushing the bobbin up past it, so you get a little backlashing, but also that your thread isn't fully flossed between the tension disc, and you need to check the bobbin case again and the check spring. The check spring, as it's pulling the thread down, can be a problem, and it can make it so it's not springing correctly. Make sure you're checking out your pre-tension guide, your tension guide, because we did some updated pictures with it. Now, railroad tracking, the tension on the top thread is too great. It's too tight. And the tension on the bottom is too slack. That's why you're getting railroad tracking. And then if it's on the bottom, the top thread tension is too slack, so tighten it up. This bearding, okay, it represents you having the batting on wrong. Okay, you have the scrim facing up instead of down, so it's pulling up through. This right here, this mass is most likely that it's not pulled between the tensioner. And make sure that you're checking that out. So if you can identify what the stitches are, then you can easily make some adjustments. This right here, the thread's too loose. Tighten it up, you guys. Take your fingernail and rub it against your stitch. If your stitch is really wiggly and it's loose, then tighten up your tension, both your bobbin and your top, so it's nice and even, because we don't want a loose stitch. And right down below, you have this over threading when it comes to the peaks, where it's over stitching at the points and it's pulling it up through. This means that your needle might be a little too big, and so it's pulling up the thread. So the thread determines the size needle that you're using. This down below here is the fabric is poking through, and so make sure that this also occurs when the needle is too large and the thread weight is being used. So watch your thread size, weight, and use the correct needle for it. Now, if you have long stitches, that's a stitch that doesn't have any holes where the needle has gone down to try to make it into a stitch. It's usually an encoder issue. Go and check your encoders. The skip stitches, however, that could be that your machine's threaded not correctly, and your foot height might be too high. So check your foot height. Now I'm going to go to the next page. So I wanted to show you this little video because I had problems with the
Fill underneath. Okay, something's going on, and I know it's threaded correctly, but it's pretty tight. Okay, I'm going to back off, lefty-loosey. I'm going to back off on the tension just slightly, but I'm also going to pull out my bobbin case and see what's going on with it, okay? So as I pulled out my bobbin case, my tail might have been too long. I just want to make sure it's turning correctly. It is. And then put the tail off. to the side. All right, let's try it again. All right, that came out pretty good. Okay, so it looks like a pretty good stitch. Let's take a closer look at it. And you should see a full stitch with a little knot in between. That's a good stitch, okay? You should barely be able to see the bottom thread coming up. And when I fill underneath, I shouldn't really feel a mess or the thread itself. I should just be able to barely feel it. Now, let's see what it looks like underneath. And I'll cut my threads. And you can see that my thread tail from underneath, let's loosen this right here. The thread tail underneath got caught, and see the little mess it made, but it looks good underneath as well. So when you're filling it, just make sure it looks like a stitch. That's a nice even stitch, and see the knot is evenly distributed all the way through. Okay, that looks good. Start with the tension tighter and then back off and loosen it up. You want to see that bottom thread come up at first, and then you can back off on the tension. Still underneath. Okay, something's going on.
All right, you guys, on that, I found it really interesting that the thread tail, if it gets caught underneath the lever when you're putting it in, because we're really not watching where it is, make sure it's over to the left when you put it in and not so long that it can get wrapped around something. If you have a hard time pulling your thread tail up from the bottom, then that's a good indication that there's something going on with the bobbin case. It just seems to be that's what you need to look at, and that's probably the thread is wrapped around something, and that's why it looks a little messy underneath. And so that's a good indication. Pull it out, try it again, and then check your stitching. All right, so this is what it looks like when we have the wrong thread weight on the wrong size needle. It's very, very tight, and it's going to be hard for it to pull in. This is where you're going to get breaking of threads. So watch for what the thread recommends, okay? Then this is a good picture of what it should look like. The thread should go through the eye of the needle and be very smooth. It shouldn't really catch and be hard to pull through at all. And right down below, I put it because now we're using the Grote Speckert needles, and they're MRs, and they're multi-directional. They're a great needle. Now, I learned just recently that if you're buying these needles on Amazon, they could be counterfeit, okay? And they are not a Grote Speckert needle. So make sure that you're purchasing it from a reputable person or shop or whatever that is buying them from Grote Speckert, and you can buy them from us. And we're also going to get different styles of needles for t-shirt quilts and sharps and things like that. So just like with hand stitching, you need a different style and point on your needle to work with the different fabrics that you're using. And so this is a really good chart for you to go off of and learn how to identify the right point that you need for your quilts. All right, so the next page is, now this is our, we did our own testing, you guys. We did a lot of testing on a lot of different styles of thread. This is the needle size right here, and this is the thread size and type. And so if you will use this chart, it will really help you get the correct needle size. So a couple of questions that we had: what are some of the things that can cause tension to change while quilting a project? That is, there are a lot of variables. The bobbin in the thread, as the bobbin starts to run out, the tension's changing. Every time you roll your quilt, you might be tensioning the quilt a little tighter or not enough. And so that's another variable that can change. So when you change a needle, when you change threads, if you're changing threads consistently, that can change. So there are a lot of variables that can change, but when you know what to look for, you can adjust your tension and make it really accurate. So once you know what a good stitch looks like, don't be afraid to adjust the tensioner knob and your bobbin case to accommodate those. And I would say check it every time you go to change your bobbin. Make sure that you're checking it by doing the test, by pulling that thread tail up and out. And then one person asked, how do I balance dynamic change when you need to use different weights of bobbin? And there again, don't be afraid to adjust the tension on your bobbin and on your tensioner knob. Once you know what the thread weight is, yeah, write it down and say that I turned it to number 1, but it could be slightly different every time you go to use it. So make sure you're using the correct size needle. I can't stress that enough. And then the bobbin weight thread is upper and lower are different. So try to use the same weight if you can, but if you can't, then just know that you need to use the correct tension on your bobbin case and the right size needle, and it should be good to go. Okay. All right, let's turn the next page. So this is your little test. I really want you to practice it. And next time we meet, we're really going to have more hands-on, and we're going to show you how these tensioners come together and show you how they work in comparison. So here's my little guide of how the bobbin should be seated in. You'll see the one to the right, it's pushing up and out. Now I had this at the show. I had one of the bobbin cases that it was pushing the bobbin up out just enough that I had eyelashing underneath. But I knew what to do and I knew how to take care of it. So I just went and got a new bobbin case. I didn't want to fiddle with it, and it was good to go. It looked really good. So that's what I'm telling you right under here, that it could cause a little bit of eyelashing. So really get a new one. So this is what bad stitches look like. So this is one thing that we don't keep an eye on. We look at the top tension and it looks good. But when we go to roll the quilt, how many of us see bad, terrible stitching? And that's because we really are starting out with the tension too loose on top and on bottom. So let's tighten it up and make it look a little more like a stitch on the bottom. And once you do, it will be good to go. So, and then I have a couple other videos. This is one that I have tightened the tension up, and you can see the knot coming up on the top, but you see it a little railroad tracking. So we need to slack off on that tension to pull that knot down. So we need to loosen it up. So don't be afraid to look at the stitch and make those adjustments. All right. Now here, right here, we can place 2 drops of oil on the hook assembly, okay, and work it in. And then instead of putting the oil in the oils, I don't know, the oil hole at the top of the machines on all of our machines, take a little brush and brush the oil onto your needle bar. And then turn it on manual and let it work its way in. That will lubricate the machine. You know, if you're not oiling your machine regularly, that can also cause some problems with tension. So make sure you're cleaning out the hook, and take your needle plate off and clean it out as well. You'd be surprised at how many threads get caught down underneath here, and they can cause a lot of problems. So clean it out. If you've had a big mess, I would say take the needle plate off and clean it up. And then sometimes when a needle breaks, a portion of the needle can be down inside. You need to find all those little components so that they don't get caught down in there and get caught in the hook, so it's rubbing against it. So make sure you're cleaning it out really, really well. Now, this is another thing that can cause a lot of tension problems, is how we wind our bobbins. We need to make sure that they're winding even and tight enough, so that it's going to help give you good tension. So if your bobbins look like this cone shape, you need to make some adjustments on your tensioner knob that for the bobbin winder. And don't be afraid to adjust these as well. Lots of times they're not in the right position, And so, and with time, like everything settles. And these slight little adjustments need to be made regularly. So make sure you're reading the instructions and adjusting the knobs. And also, don't be afraid to give it some more tension on the thread so that as it's winding nice and even to give you a good look, okay? So make sure you're adjusting the tensioner on the bobbin. And here we go. Okay, now I get to talk about long stitches and skip stitches, okay? Really important that you check your encoders. There's two encoders. There's the top encoder, which you can see because it's mounted to your sewing machine wheel. But the bottom encoder, because it's hidden down underneath the carriage, you can't tell if it's rubbing. So when you're doing your little checklist, get back behind there and look underneath, move the carriage back and forth and watch what the encoder wheel is doing. If you're getting long stitches, that could be the culprit. It could be just rubbing against the plate or the wheelbase of the bottom carriage. That is going to cause you long stitches. Make sure that the cords are plugged in correctly and they're not being pulled so that they'll unplug while you're quilting. That's another really important thing. Now, skip stitches, okay? That usually means probably one of the biggest culprits is that your hopping foot is just too high and um, it can't grab the stitch because it's up so high. So from your manual, make sure that you're checking the hopping foot height correctly. Make sure when you are checking the hopping foot height that your needle is in the down position. That's one of the biggest things is that we don't check the hopping foot height with the needle in the down position. And that could be a big problem. You could actually break a foot. All right, this is one that I really want to stress, and then I'll shut up, okay, you guys, because I filled your head with a lot of stuff. Okay, so these are what we call drunken stitches, okay? Drunken stitches usually happen when, and it's mostly using the automation, if our belts aren't tight. Okay, if you've loosened them for free motion quilting, make sure that you re-tighten them. Also, another thing that we don't look at is what our stitch looks like as it's quilting using the automation. So here are the tensioners. Make sure you're tightening up both belts. That's the belt on the machine. That's your top belt. And your belt that goes across the frame, tighten it up as well. And make it tight, but not too tight that it skips the little teeth as it's going through it. Make sure it's threaded correctly. The other thing I want you to check with that, if the belts are too loose, if you've done it, it won't move. The machine will not move, and you can't set your safe area. And the other thing I want to talk about is aligning your wheels to your frame. So you have your bottom carriage, okay? It's not even your sewing machine, and it needs to be aligned to your long tracks on your frame. If the wheels are slightly off and you're using the automation, it can pull the wheels, will make your design flat, okay, in areas. So if you have a curved design and you're seeing some flat spots on your curve, that's a good indication that your wheels are not aligned correctly and you need to make some adjustments on it. The same thing is true for the sewing machine wheels. They have to be aligned to your top carriage tracks, your bottom carriage tracks, sorry. And so make sure you're using the set screws on the machines to all the wheels. I'm going to say this. I'm not an engineer, so I can say this. All the wheels should be riding on the tracks at all times. So move your machine back and forth across your frame. Make sure all the wheels are turning, and then move it front to back. Make sure all the wheels are touching the tracks and turning, and you'll be good. All right. Then this is just puckering. Also, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is tensioning our fabric too tight or too loose, okay? So the takeoff bar should be a finger's width up off of the plate of the sewing machine, of the bottom of the sewing machine. And if it is up too high, you're going to get a lot of vibration and play in your fabric. This is going to cause tension, and it's going to make you have drunken stitches because think about it. we know what vibration feels like. It feels like a jackhammer as we're moving across our our frame on our quilt top, if the wheels are not aligned correctly. Well, the same thing is true with the fabric. It can be flapping back and forth, and it can cause a lot of vibrations where your stitches are going to look really, really bad. So make sure your tension's smooth and even as you're rolling the quilt, and make sure that take-up rail is nice and even, and the front rail. So the take-up rail and the front rail should be nice and aligned, and it should be straight across. Okay, now side tension, you should have side tension. Now the bungees can get in the way. So if the bungees are going to get in the way of your quilt top and you can't quilt all the way to the edge, then use what I call as the side leader. Just make it out of fabric, pin it to the edges, and then clamp your bungees to it. This way you're going to have nice even tension all the way around your quilt, and it will make a huge difference. Okay, last but not least, you've got this. We can all learn tension. I know more about tension now because of you and because of teaching it. So no matter what the issue is, please email me. I want to help. And it's Karla with a K, Karla @gracefriend.com.